Hey everybody, two Alpha Gals here. I'm Debbie Nichols.
And I'm Candace Mathis, and you're listening to In the Tall Grass, where we're sharing stories of reinvention, resilience, and rediscovering joy.
Whether it's facing Alpha Gal syndrome or any other redefining chapter of life, we all have to learn how to navigate the journey through the tall grass. So here we go. Hey everybody, we are so excited today to welcome a friend of ours, Dee Nash. Dee is an author, speaker, and garden coach born and raised in Oklahoma. She is living with Alpha Gal syndrome, and we had the pleasure of getting to know her in our food allergy mentorship program. Welcome, Dee. Thank you so much for being here today.
I am so glad to be here. I'm so excited.
Well, we love seeing your smiling face. If you wouldn't mind, I know we've gotten to know you pretty well these last few months, but could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I'm a native Oklahoman. I was born here and went to school here and stayed here. And I live with my husband in the wooded part of Oklahoma. That always surprises people that there's a wooded part of Oklahoma. But east of I-35 is sandy soil and beautiful woods. And those woods have ticks, unfortunately. And I'm a garden writer, a garden coach, a blogger, a podcaster. And I have a podcast called The Garden Angelists with my good friend from Indiana, Carol Michael. And my favorite thing to do right now is garden coaching and podcasting.
How did you discover your love of gardening? Because it sort of has woven into so many of the things you just told us about, all these things that you love. How did you come about realizing that that was something that you loved?
Well, just like so many gardeners, I toddled behind my favorite grandmother. Her name was Nita. Her name was actually Juanita. And I would toddle behind her in her little yard, in her little town. And I still remember my little white shoes. You know, they had those little trainers back in the old days. And I remember them against the black dirt. And I remember her showing me good food and showing me her roses. And I have a real love for roses. And so I know all of that's due to her.
I love that. Oh, that's so sweet. I could totally picture the shoes when you're describing that. So, okay,
Yeah.
Can we dive a little bit into your Alpha Gal journey? Because we know
Yep.
how much you love gardening, but that is unfortunately also where you potentially contracted Alpha Gal syndrome. Is that right?
Not potentially, it's for sure where I got it,
Okay.
for sure. Because I think I've had the Alpha Gal for several years. But what set me over the edge last summer was I got bit by 5 larval ticks in one day and we can talk more about, the Lone Star tick if you want to later. And but the larval ticks we now know hunt us, which is creepy as all get out. I think of them as little zombies. It makes me feel better to think of them that way. And I got hit with 5 of them in one day, and the sores didn't heal. And it took about a month for them to heal. And I remember my husband spraying Benadryl on me for that, for several weeks because they itched so bad. And then I started to have much, much worse reactions. So yeah, it was in the garden for sure. And that was what finally set me over the edge.
So how do you balance your love of gardening with the fear of going back outside? Because you're a garden coach. That's going outside.
I'm a garden coach. Yeah.
And you love it. I mean, so do you have any tips for what you've done to kind of overcome the fear part of going back into the garden?
So I can't not garden. I just can't. That almost brings tears to my eyes because it's so important to me. And it's important to me for a lot of reasons. And I really love pollinators. Okay. So I don't use any pesticides in my garden. And that's important when we're talking about ticks. Some people do use pesticides. They use the granules, and no judgment here from me at all, but I can't have it affect my other pollinators or the owls or any of the other creatures that are in my garden, right? The birds. And so I had decided that I needed to suit up. And I listened to an interview that you guys did with the, I think, vice president of Insect Shield. And I listened to that whole interview. And I felt like it really educated me. And so I gear up before I go out there. And I wear totally permethrin bonded clothing. And I buy it from Insect Shield. And not only do I do that, then I talk to some naturalists I knew who go out in the field, and some of them collect ticks to study them, and they use double-sided tape. And I take double-sided tape and wrap it around my pants that already have permethrin, and I also have a lint roller. And so when I come in from the garden, I roll off anything that might be potentially there. And I feel pretty protected, and I see it as my armor when I go out there.
I think that's brilliant. I'm so glad you shared that with people who are listening, because I think we need to have a set of armor in order to go out. It feels like we're going to war a little bit against these zombies, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're stepping out, but it's so great that you found a way to be able to go back to enjoy the things that you love. Because I think, with alpha gal syndrome, we give up so many things. And, like we were talking earlier today, we're continuously finding more things that we're needing to cut out or give up for a little while. So to be able to bring stuff back into your life in a safe way, I think is really, really important for keeping our lives joyful. So I'm so glad that you shared exactly how you're doing that. And I know, if I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but I believe that you find a lot of joy in cooking too, just based on our conversations, right? Cooking is one of those things that brings you joy. And we know you're an amazing cook. We've actually cooked together with you over Zoom.
The best muffins ever.
So good.
They were good, right? I know.
They
Actually,
were. My family still says, make more of those muffins.
it's time. Maybe we need to do it together, because I think my family is saying the same thing.
Yeah, we should do that. We should get together and do that.
Yes.
I do love to cook, and I have as my best friend says, I have a very diverse palate, which I'm grateful for, since I have alpha gal, because I see a lot of people struggle with not being able to, they really, really grieve meat. And I don't grieve it at all. So for me to be safe, as safe as I can, because I'm pretty highly reactive, because I just got diagnosed in October. So I'm still in that. I've just done the 6 months. Right. And that first 6 months, boy, some of us are very reactive. I can eat, I like lots of different foods, and so that helps. So I eat mostly vegan. I'd say 90% vegan. And then I also eat wild caught fish, and that's it. Because I think it's safer. But within veganism or plant-based, if you want to take the label off of it, as you guys know, it's very diverse, and there's lots and lots of foods in there. And the only problem in my case is, as we talked earlier, I really love high histamine foods. And so I have to watch my histamine bucket and not get it overloaded. But I love vegan foods. I think I've been able to make really good substitutions, and I don't care if I have milk. So I'm actually really fortunate. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. But I'm also glad that you mentioned sort of the diversity of foods, because I think I had it in my head that veganism meant eating, basically like broccoli and rice, for the longest time. Yeah, it's sprouts, right? But since I've gone plant-based myself, for, 10 months or something like that, I've been so blown away by the diverse amount of recipes I've been able to make, right? Like, we're eating such a wide variety of plants, and so flavorful, and things, a few years ago, I probably would never have dreamed that I would love as much as I do. But really, taking out a couple of things, I feel like I added in exponentially more things,
So definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Because I was actually dairy free for 10 years, because I went gluten free in 2007 because I had stomach issues and also joint issues, and that solved a bunch of it. And I also went off dairy at the time. So I already knew that there were pretty good dairy substitutions. The thing is now there are so many better ones. And oh my goodness, the oat butter is delicious. And it is as good. And I got to tell you about last night. So my husband, who is a big meat eater, but doesn't eat meat around me, and we don't have anything in the house, it's all alpha gal safe. I think he has a little bit of cheese in his drawer, but that's it. So, and he doesn't heat it up. But last night he came home, I was frying some tofu, because I find it hard to get enough calories now because I eat mostly vegan, so I need to eat more than I used to. So I had done this tofu and I was frying it, and he came in and I had salted it and I was going to put it in a stir fry. And he said, "Oh my gosh, this is so good." And he stood there and he ate the tofu like popcorn. And I thought, boy, we have come a long way, right?
Yeah. So while you're talking, I was wondering, like, is there a food that kind of shocks you that you love now? Like mine was definitely tofu because I definitely made fun of people back in the day, which I feel like I'm a compassionate human being, but let's be real, I would be like, who eats tofu? Like,
Well, it looks terrible,
right,
but then if you fry it and put a little spice on it,
right.
it's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
something that like shocked you that you love now, or is there another food?
Oh, I think all the cashew-based sauces. For those of us who can eat cashews, and that doesn't really have to do with alpha-gal. People with alpha-gal can eat cashews, but some people become allergic to cashews later. I think the cashew-based sauces. I made a pasta Alfredo for New Year's Eve. There, you can't eat it the next day, but boy, that first day, it's just as good as dairy all the way around. I think I've learned a lot of things. Desserts, you can make really good desserts too.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been fascinating, I think, not to go down this, plant-based rabbit hole and talking about that, but I've been cooking for the lacrosse team quite a bit, and one of the kids has a dairy allergy, and it's been so funny because everybody's like, "What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do?" I was like, "I got you covered. This kid's gonna eat better than any other kid on the team."
Amen, sister.
Right?
This kid's going to be really, really happy because his food is going to taste really good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who have allergies who have to have a piece of this, and I think that alpha-gal is like that because a lot of people with alpha-gal can't eat dairy. Some can eat low-fat versions of it. Some can't. I'm one of those that can't. So it's definitely changed my life. But can I just say that I've lost 55 pounds and I lost it very easily. And that was something that surprised me. So I'm healthier than I ever have been before. And if I can just keep from getting bit, then over time, my reactions will get less. And that's why I dress in my armor.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. So I know that you're newer in this journey. You were bitten in October. It's not been that long. So, and I think you've shared some really valuable points and pieces of your journey that are going to be helpful for anyone listening that is also dealing with alpha-gal. But do you have any specific advice for someone that is newly diagnosed with alpha-gal syndrome?
Well, first of all, I would do your mentoring program because I felt like that gave me a jump start. It really did. I mean that with all my heart. And I tell people that who reach out to me. I think when you're diagnosed, first, you feel like you're in a wilderness. I'm not going to lie. And a lot of times, at least in Oklahoma, because it is not well known in Oklahoma yet, but it's becoming an epidemic. And I hear about, I'm on a group on Facebook and we add a bunch of members every week. So I know that it's an epidemic, and I know this from doctors that are familiar with it, the few allergists who know about it now. I think the first thing to do is get an EpiPen. Get your EpiPens. You need 2 of them for sure. And you need to carry those on you all the time. And you also need to have a relief kit, but you don't even know what that is yet. And you've probably just been told by your doctor, hey, you have something called alpha-gal syndrome from a tick bite, so don't eat meat. That's what they usually tell you because that's all they know. I think you're going to have to do, take a deep breath, and then you're going to have to do a deep dive because this is not going to be, it's going to be harder than you think, I think. Unless you're just one of those people. I know a few people in Oklahoma who have it, who got it from one tick bite maybe, and they aren't that reactive. And God love them. I'm so glad for them. I'm so glad. But start with meat first. That's the first thing you should do. Absolutely do not eat meat organs. That's the worst thing you can do. And then you need to start educating yourself because the truth is there isn't enough known about it here, especially. but it's getting more well known. And then I would hire you guys because I think that would give you a huge jump start. And you've got to clean out your kitchen. And then you've got to educate your family. And that takes some time. And it wouldn't help if, it would also help if you have a therapist, frankly, because keeping your emotional, mental acuity up is important. And having somebody on your team is important because my husband is the best man ever. We've been married 35 years, but at first he just didn't understand. And whereas I had, as my therapist said, I had a lot of education because my life depends on it, right? It's an anaphylactic allergy with an often delayed onset. So it's very hard to do, right? So it's important that I learn fast. He had to have some time to catch up. And just the other night, he said that he's on Team D because he knows how hard it is now. So I don't want to make people, I want this to be light and cheery, but that's my advice for somebody new. You need to have a team. You really do. And your doctors need to be part of it. And personally, this is just my personal opinion. If your doctor blows you off, which sometimes they do, get a new doctor immediately because it's life is too short and you don't want yours to be too short. So that's my thoughts on it.
Oh my gosh, you touched on so many great things. So many great things. Having your team, looking at your team as part of your toolkit, right? And expanding your team to your family, your friends, your partner, your doctor, your medical team, your mental health professionals. All these things are only going to add and strengthen that support system to make it easier to navigate this. So I am so glad that you shared all of these tips and tools. And Candace and I say all the time that, knowledge is power, right? And I feel like that expands when you're educating the people around you and they're being able to determine how they can help you and how they can help you live this crazy, stupid, complex condition.
Crazy, stupid disease. As one of my
Yes.
friends who wanted me to come speak at her school the other day about beekeeping, which I also had to give up because bee stings can be a problem too. They can be a cofactor. I was explaining to her what was going on and I used the word syndrome because that's what it's initially called, right? And she goes, oh gosh, I hate it anytime the word syndrome comes up because her son has a different type of syndrome, which is complicated too. So she got it immediately. So yeah, it's a crazy disease and it's very, very hard to manage sometimes. But I think with a team you will figure it out. And I'm willing to help people. I mean, I have a platform on Instagram and on my website, on my blog, and it's Red Dirt Ramblings, and I'm not sharing it to like promote myself because I'm not. But if I can help people, heck yeah. I've done several videos where I stand in the garden in my armor and talk about it because I really feel passionately about this. I don't want other people to get sick.
Yes, we appreciate so much what it is that you're doing with your platform, right? You can push it all you want because we know that in addition to it being fantastic, you're using it as a platform to educate others. And that makes me wonder, what is it that inspires you? I mean, you say you're passionate about it. What is it that you find inspiration from?
With regard to alpha gal in particular or just life in general?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. um, I think I am often passionate about things I love. So I'm very passionate about gardening. I'm very passionate about my family. I care deeply about them. They're very supportive. My children really caught up quick because they went and did research and said, OMG, this is bad. And I said, yeah, it's kind of rough. I think that I'm passionate about alpha gal because I see so many people suffer and I suffer. I've had to change my whole life. My whole life has been upended. And what we talked about before this was how I had to change my garden coaching to do it on Zoom because I also have asthma. And between the pollen and the alpha gal, I just was overloading my whole system. So I had to make some changes there. And I had to make changes about speaking engagements. So I see the platform as a place where I can do small bites of information and help people. So I think ultimately I like to help people garden, and I like to help people do the things they love. And whether you have alpha-gal yet or not, and I really don't want you to get it, but if you do, I want to help you there too, because I believe in, but I believe in that anyway, that we all help each other.
And I think that's why we love you so much. Like,
I love you guys too.
like seriously. And I just want to say, we did not pay you to say anything about the mentorship program.
You haven't paid me at all. I'm here of my own free will.
But, I think, you've been a huge blessing for Debbie and I too. Like just watching you grow through this process in a very, very challenging time, watching your family embrace you, Bill embrace you, and you have been so strong and an amazing advocate for yourself, but with this beautiful grace. So we're so proud of you and where you are in this moment, especially in comparison to, where you've been with all of this. It's hard. And
well, I think my faith in God helps. I mean, I'll just be honest. I'm a believer, and I believe that God helps me. And so if I have any grace at all, I think that's from the Holy Spirit. And if that's too religious for people, do what works for you. That's my thoughts. Whatever belief system helps get you through this, lean on it hard, because it is hard. And I won't lie that it's hard, but I will say that I listen to your podcast every week, and I listen to it because I appreciate all of the hopeful stories out there. And I want to be a hopeful story too. And I'd love to do this later when I'm 2 years down the line and not so reactive too. I think that would give people hope also.
Right.
You can do this and you can still enjoy what you want to do.
I think you're already a story of hope. Although I would like to go ahead and book you for 2 years down the road, because I think that is going to be really fun to revisit. I mean, not that we're going to wait 2 years to talk to you, of course, but I think that just hear you speak about how far you've come since your diagnosis, hearing the way that you phrase the future, when I can eat this again, when I can do this again, you are already bringing so much hope and optimism to this conversation. And I think that's what we all need. I'm not just talking about our listeners. I'm talking about me and Candace too, right? We have these days where it feels very hopeless sometimes when we've had a bad reaction and we think we're supposed to be better at alpha-gal than this. We get an exposure, So it's so great to be able to share this hope, with all of us, to share this common ground that it sucks a little bit, sometimes a whole lot, but you don't have to stay in that suck.
No, you don't. You don't have to stay there. And, I've made more friends. That's another thing. I've made really good local friends now who have alpha-gal syndrome, and we support each other too. And one of those friends got bit by a tick, and she's really suffering today and really sad. And so I've been propping her up and holding her up, because I know how sad she is, because when you get bit again, then your stuff flares worse again sometimes. And another friend wrote me the most beautiful note, Marcy Hawkins up in Tulsa, because she has really complicated stuff that is also triggered by her alpha-gal, because she has a version of, I think it's called EOS. So she has more complications too, right? But she wrote me the most beautiful note and said, "You're going to feel better, and I'm here for you." And she, we have to help each other. That's just the truth of it.
Right. Yeah, we all need community. We are,
We
as
do.
beings, we need community, and I think that was a driving force between starting Two Alpha Gals for us. It's we don't want people to feel alone in this, and however small a part we play in that is good enough for us. We want people to not feel alone and find joy.
And you do feel alone when you're having a reaction. And I laughed when you said we should be better at this, but I laughed not at you. I was laughing at the fact that we all feel that way when we have a reaction again, because I happen to have really bad airborne reactions. And so unfortunately, I get zinged by those pretty regularly and right now. And so every time it happens, I think, "Oi, why did I do that again?" But it's not really my fault.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things that happens, and you go, "Okay, I got to go put my mask on," or whatever. So those things, I think one of the things you guys do so well, and one of the things I think we need to give a shout out to Sharon Forsyth too, because she does so much research. I think this whole community that takes care of each other does so well that they understand how you feel, and there's not a lot of blaming. In fact, there's no blame. Everybody just says, "Wow, I feel for you today. How can I help you get through this? Have you taken your emergency medications?" Just whatever it is that you need to tell them, you know? Thank goodness. Because honestly, the doctors don't really know enough yet. They're learning, but they
Right.
don't know enough yet.
Yeah. And even Dr. Scott Cummins, one of his quotes, Debbie and I just did a presentation yesterday and had it in our slides. He, the lead researcher, said that alpha-gal is consistently inconsistent.
Inconsistent. Mm-hmm.
And so I think everyone has this level of understanding that you can try the best that you can, and it can just wham, come out of nowhere,
Yeah.
You just, there shouldn't be blame. And if someone is blaming, like you said, fire your doctor or fire your people around you. I don't know. Like
if you don't have supportive people around you on your team, you need to find a new team member. You just do. It's just, there are a lot of team members out there. And in fact, this came to me this week. I won't show the details, but I went to a different team member and said, "This team member is not helping me." And they said, "We will help you." So it is out there. And but you have to be a good advocate for yourself. And sometimes when you don't feel well, that's hard. So the point, we really need to try to feel as good as we can so that we can be really good advocates for ourselves. Now, if you're passed out from an anaphylactic reaction, you can't do that because some of us have trouble with that. I personally haven't so far, but I know you do, don't you, Candace? Or do you, Debbie?
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are scary, but I think, we do the best we can. And so we can't, I can't live there. Like if I'm feeling anxious about all this stuff, I go out in the garden and I pull some weeds. That helps me a lot.
Yes, having that kind of outlet, I think is really important too, whether it's pulling weeds or running or meditating or praying or whatever it is that you do. Walking the dog, that's mine. I walk the dog,
A walk is one of the best things.
Yeah, I think so too. But then also having knowing that you've got people when you come back from something like a bad reaction, that makes a huge difference too. Just being able to say, "You know what, last night sucked and I feel like I failed, but remind me that I'm going to get back up again and tackle this again and not let it take me down." And I think that's what your support system should look like.
I do too. I really do. And I think we need to not think we failed either, because you know what? We can't be perfect. We're doing the best we can.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. We're doing the best that we can. And this is all so new, period. It's new, period. They are just now coming out with all this research, right? We're learning as we go and we are killing it, frankly, right?
We're a very motivated community.
Yes.
I have to say, we're one of the most motivated communities of any disease I've ever seen, because we're like, "I'm not going to the hospital. I hate that." So we're going to figure it out. And
not today.
We do our best.
Today, CTAN as well. Now that we're plant-based.
Uh-huh.
That's right. And it is, I will say, eating plant-based is the easiest way I can manage it. It is the easiest.
Yeah.
But I know people who love to eat ostrich and emu, and I say more power to them. If it works for them, great. I just don't want to eat that. It just doesn't strike me as something I want to eat. But I think you have to navigate it whichever way you want to navigate it. Yeah. And if it works for you and you don't react to it, then do it. If duck fat is your thing, great.
All right. Well, we are going to finish with the hardest question that we ask our guests. So what song in this moment or for all time brings you joy?
This is my song for all time. And I'm so glad you guys asked me this ahead of time so that I could think about it, but I would have answered it anyway this way. So I love Jewel. I've loved her forever. And Hands is my favorite song of hers. And I used it way back when I went through something really difficult in my late 30s when I was in perimenopause. And I think because I'll just be honest, I had panic attacks back then. I had rolling, horrible panic attacks. And so this AGS is just as difficult as that time was. And so I play it all the time. And, and the point of the song is that your hands are small, but they're your hands and you're important to the journey and you're important to help someone else. And so I really hold on to that. And I gave my therapist that album. It's actually a Christmas album is what it's on. And I gave her, I think back then we had CDs. So I gave her the CD and, she and I still talk about that song. So I still feel like that's why, and my therapist, I saw her yesterday and she said, you're being a good advocate, but you have to remember to take care of yourself. Because if you don't put your oxygen mask on, then you can't put anybody else's on.
That's right.
And so she had me quit some things and say no to some things. And I was so relieved afterwards. So there's a fine line, but that's my favorite song. I love Jewel. I love her voice. And that song makes me really happy.
I love it. So I loved Jewel as a teenager and I had her poetry book and I actually passed it along to my daughter last year when I was going through a bin of some high school stuff. And so, yeah, when I found out that was your answer, it kind of made me.
Well, we're sisters, the three of us, of the heart for sure.
Yes.
And what I was thinking when you were saying that is how hard Jewel's life was. At one point she was living out of a car,
right? And
she had no support from her family. So she really means it when she sings in her poetry. And I had her poetry book too, and I had her autobiography too. So yeah, I totally get it.
I love it. Well, Dee, it was so great to spend some more time with you today. Thank you so much for making time for us to chat and to share your wisdom and to share your experience and to become vulnerable for our listeners. And we really look forward to the next time, which will not be 2 years from now, even though we'll do that then.
We love you, Dee. Thank you.
I love you too very, very much. Have a great day.
Until next time. Thank you for joining us today on In the Tall Grass. Visit us at 2alphagals.com. That's TWOalphagals.com. Or you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at 2alphagals. If you enjoyed listening, please leave a review and help us grow this community.
We're all faced with obstacles on our journey, whether it be food allergies or tick-borne diseases. You might outgrow the reactions, but you won't outgrow the person you become. Ticks suck, but life doesn't have to.